Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel, The Middle Ages. Today, we're diving into a topic that marks a pivotal turning point in history: the fall of castles. For centuries, these magnificent stone fortresses dominated the landscape, symbols of power, wealth, and military might. They were the homes of lords and ladies, the centers of local government, and the ultimate defense against invading armies. From the rugged hills of Scotland to the sun-drenched lands of the Levant, castles were the undisputed kings of the battlefield. But as the old saying goes, nothing lasts forever. The age of the castle, which spanned hundreds of years, eventually came to a dramatic and fascinating end. So what happened? What new forces emerged that could topple these seemingly invincible giants? Grab a comfortable seat, because we're about to journey back in time to witness the decline of one of history's most iconic structures. To understand why castles fell, we first need to appreciate why they were so dominant. In the early medieval period, warfare was primarily about siege. An attacking army would surround a castle, cut off its supplies, and try to wait out the defenders. The castle's design was a masterclass in defensive architecture. High, thick walls made it incredibly difficult for attackers to climb. Moats, drawbridges, and heavy gates created formidable barriers. Arrow slits or murder holes allowed defenders to rain down projectiles on anyone foolish enough to get too close, all while remaining protected. A well-stocked castle could hold out for months, even years. The attackers, on the other hand, faced enormous challenges. They were exposed to the elements, vulnerable to disease spreading through their camps, and constantly at risk of being attacked by a relief force. Sieges were costly and time-consuming, and often ended in failure for the besieging army. Castles were the ultimate defensive weapon, and for a long time, there was no effective answer to them. Early siege weapons like catapults and trebuchets could hurl massive stones, but they were often inaccurate and could take a long time to breach a well-built stone wall. For the medieval lord, investing in a castle was the best insurance policy money could buy. It solidified his control over his land and made him a force to be reckoned with. But the world was changing. The late Middle Ages and the early Renaissance period brought a wave of innovation and new ideas. And one invention, in particular, would sound the death knell for the traditional castle: gunpowder. While early forms of gunpowder had been known for some time, it was the development of powerful, reliable cannons in the 14th and 15th centuries that truly changed the game. Imagine the scene. For generations, your family's castle has stood strong against every threat. Its walls are thick, its towers high. Suddenly, an enemy army arrives, but instead of building trebuchets, they wheel massive iron tubes into position. With a deafening roar and a cloud of smoke, these cannons launch heavy iron or stone balls at your walls. Unlike the arcing trajectory of a catapult, these projectiles fly in a relatively straight line with immense force. Thump! A crack appears in the stone. Thump! The crack widens. Thump! 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 Hour after hour, the relentless bombardment continues. Soon, chunks of the wall begin to crumble, and before long, a gaping hole is punched through your once impenetrable defense. The age of the cannon had arrived, and the age of the castle was drawing to a close. One of the most famous examples of this shift was the fall of Constantinople in 1453. The city's legendary Theodosian walls had repelled invaders for over 1,000 years. But the Ottoman Sultan, Mehmed II, brought with him a new superweapon, the Orban Bombard, a massive cannon that could fire enormous stone balls. After a 53-day siege, the constant pounding from these cannons finally breached the unbreakable walls, leading to the fall of the Byzantine Empire. This event sent shockwaves across Europe. If Constantinople could fall, no castle was safe. The psychological impact was immense. The balance of power had shifted dramatically from the defender to the attacker. In response to this new threat, military architecture had to evolve. Castle designers tried to adapt. They built lower, thicker walls that were angled to deflect cannonballs. They added earthen banks in front of the stone to absorb the impact. These new types of fortifications, known as star forts or bastions, were designed specifically to withstand and counter artillery fire. They had complex geometric shapes that eliminated blind spots and allowed defenders to create deadly crossfires with their own cannons. While effective, these new designs were a far cry from the majestic, towering castles of the medieval era. They were functional, brutalist military installations, not noble residences. The romance of the castle was fading, replaced by the grim science of artillery warfare. But it wasn't just gunpowder that doomed the castle. Social and political changes were also at play. The medieval world was a fragmented landscape of feudal lords, each controlling their own territory from their local castle. As the Middle Ages ended, powerful monarchs began to centralize their power. Kings and queens started to build strong, national armies loyal only to them. They could afford the latest military technology, like cannons, and they had the resources to field large, professional forces. Local lords and their private armies simply couldn't compete. A king with a royal artillery train could demolish any rebellious noble's castle with relative ease. The castle, once a symbol of a lord's independence, became a liability. It was a target that could be easily destroyed by the increasingly powerful central state. As a result, the political importance of castles declined. Power was no longer based in a network of fortified manors, but was concentrated in the hands of the monarch and their court in the capital city. The focus shifted from local defense to national armies and navies. The era of the feudal knight was giving way to the era of the professional soldier. Finally, the very reason for a castle's existence began to change. As kingdoms became more stable and centralized, the constant threat of local warfare diminished. Lords and nobles no longer needed to live in drafty, uncomfortable fortresses. They began to prefer luxury and comfort over pure defense. This led to the rise of the chateau, the country house, and the palace. These new buildings might retain some castle-like features like towers or decorative battlements, but these were purely for show. They were status symbols, not military structures. Large windows were installed to let in light, replacing the narrow arrow slits of old. Grand halls were built for entertaining guests, and beautiful gardens replaced moats and outer defenses. The focus shifted from fortification to fashion. The noble residence became a place to display wealth and sophistication, not to withstand a siege. Compare a grim, functional 12th century Norman keep to a sprawling, elegant 16th century French chateau, and you can see this evolution in stark relief. One is a weapon of war, the other is a work of art. So, the fall of the castle wasn't a single event, but a gradual decline caused by a perfect storm of technological, political, and social change. The thunder of the cannon rendered its stone walls obsolete. The rise of centralized monarchies stripped it of its political power, and a growing desire for comfort and luxury made it an undesirable place to live. By the 17th century, the great age of castles was well and truly over. Many fell into ruin, their stones scavenged for other buildings. Others were converted into prisons, administrative buildings, or simply abandoned to the elements, becoming the romantic, ivy-covered ruins we love to explore today. They stand as silent monuments to a bygone era, a time of knights, lords, and sieges. They remind us that in history, as in life, even the mightiest structures can eventually fall, making way for a new world. Their story is a powerful lesson in how innovation and societal change can reshape the world in ways that would have seemed unimaginable just a generation before. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through the twilight of the castle era. What do you think was the most important factor in their decline? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the Middle Ages for more deep dives into this fascinating period of history. We'll see you in the next one.